Once the gods of stadium rock, Alice Cooper, Jon Bon Jovi, and Bruce Springsteen lived lives drenched in fame, fortune, and screaming fans. But behind the glittering lights of the 80s stage was a much darker reality, one filled with personal demons, broken relationships, health scares, and battles that no amount of chart-topping hits could fix. This is the untold, heartbreaking truth about what really happened to these iconic rock stars after the music faded.
When I went into the hospital, doctor said, we'll give you a month before you're joining your buddies.
Wow.
Because, I mean, you just can't treat your body like that. And on top of it, I'm touring.
He stands behind the curtain, painting on black tears beneath the stage lights. In this moment, he is not Vincent Fournier, the man, but Alice Cooper, the myth, the villain he chose to become. Rock and roll needed a villain. I will gladly be that villain, he once laughed. For more than 5 decades, he has stalked the boards beneath dangling nooses and blinking strobes, presiding over guillotines, electric chairs, spurting blood pumps, and sinuous boa constrictors. I designed Alice to be my favorite rock star, he admits. He can basically live forever. On stage, Alice is monstrous and merciless. Offstage, Vincent is gentle, wry, almost shy. It is a strange dual citizenship, and it nearly killed him. He was born in Detroit in 1948, the son of a preacher who filled the house with hymns and scripture. Young Vincent sang in the church choir, helped his father with missionary work, and loved the warmth of the flock. Yet his heart pounded hardest against the forbidden pulse of rock and roll 45s. By 15, he had formed a band with high school buddies in Phoenix, Arizona. They called themselves the Earwigs, then the Spiders, then Naz, trying on identities like thrift store jackets, until, in a burst of wicked inspiration, they chose a single name, Alice Cooper, and all hid behind it like a mask. The band's earliest gigs felt like a cross between a garage rehearsal and a séance. Rattling amps, shards of Kinks riffs, broken dolls dangling from microphone stands. But the chaos drew eyes. Frank Zappa signed them in L.A. in 1968, bemused by their shrieks and surrealist lyrics. Knowing they weren't the best musicians in town, Vincent leaned into theater. At one show, someone threw a live chicken on stage. Alice flung the bird into the audience. It was torn apart. Newspapers screamed, city councils clutched pearls, ticket sales doubled. If controversy wanted me, Cooper said later, controversy could have me. By 1971, under the Warner Brothers banner, Alice Cooper crashed into the mainstream with I'm 18, Under My Wheels, and the anthem School's Out. Parents gasped. Teens scrawled lyrics on desktops like secret spells. In 1973, the Billion Dollar Babies tour carted around entire truckloads of nightmare props, cash-stuffed baby dolls, a 10-foot toothbrush for the song Unfinished Suite, and a jewel-encrusted boa named Eve. Mick Jagger told him, half admiring, half horrified, "Man, you've taken it all too far." Cooper just smiled. Far was the point. He bought a mansion in Hollywood with a basement bar that never closed and filled it with rock stars so thirsty they called themselves the Hollywood Vampires. Keith Moon slept in the fireplace. John Lennon popped by between exiles. Iggy Pop woke up on the roof. Vincent, crowned Prince of the Vampires, always kept the fridge stocked with Budweiser and the cupboards with Smirnoff. Beer was like air, he recalls. I'd knock down a 6-pack before breakfast, vodka for lunch, champagne on stage, whiskey to sleep. Fame in the open glare was exhilarating. Addiction in the shadows was inexorable. By the time Welcome to My Nightmare rolled out in 1975, Vincent's nightmares were hunting him off stage. During one televised concert, he looked healthy, strutting in patent leather boots. An hour later, he was in a hotel bathtub, trying to cool a feverish heart. He could not remember shows, only the applause echoing in blackout darkness. Then came the blood. In 1977, halfway through the Lace and Whiskey tour, he vomited bright red in a Toronto hotel sink. Cheryl, his wife, a graceful ballerina who danced macabre pas de deux with the monster on stage, was done. She called manager Shep Gordon. "We either save him," she said, "or we bury him." They whisked him to Cornell Medical Center's psychiatric ward. The doctors diagnosed cirrhosis-level alcoholism and warned him of organs beginning to fail. Detox was a week of cold sweats and hallucinations. Vincent awoke. Certain snakes were coiling in the bed, the irony not lost on a man famous for dancing with pythons. But amid the delirium, he rediscovered prayer. He had not knelt since adolescence. Now he clutched the edge of the mattress and whispered childhood hymns. The craving lifted like fog. Nurses said he was a medical anomaly. He said he was a prodigal son carried home. Freedom was fragile. He left hospital rooms for hotel suites and found the minibar staring back like Medusa. So he cut its head off. No more alcohol, no casual bar visits. He replaced the bar with a golf bag, hours a day walking fairways until his thoughts felt green and level. "I traded one addiction for another," he joked, "but golf never made me bleed." Cheryl saw the change and tore up divorce papers. They moved to Phoenix, built a modest house, and in time, 3 children filled the halls with laughter. Vincent rose early, drove them to school, rehearsed snake handling by noon, teed off by 3, prayed at dusk, and took the stage in top hat and gallows collar by 9. Yet the marketplace is merciless. His first sober albums, Special Forces, Zipper Catches Skin, Dada, flitted into the charts and vanished. Record execs urged him to chase MTV trends. Instead, he decided to write about the institution that had saved him. From the Inside, 1978, told stories of fellow psychiatric patients. A paranoid gun collector who slept hugging a Bible, a pyromaniac girl who spoke only in nursery rhymes. Listeners were unsettled, unsure where performance ended and confession began. That uncertainty was precisely the point. Rock history shifted again in 1986 when a young producer, Desmond Child, cornered Cooper with a guitar riff too filthy to refuse. The result was Trash, 1989, and its venomous single, Poison. Cooper, hair teased to the heavens, prowled a neon-lit video on constant MTV rotation. Teenagers who hadn't been born during the chicken incident suddenly chanted his name. Stadium tours followed, bigger than before, but with one crucial difference. Backstage coolers now held Gatorade. In each city, he slipped out in the morning to find the nearest golf course, greeting groundskeepers who shook in awe as the Dark Lord of theatrical terror stepped onto their greens wearing paisley knickers. Tragedy stalked him anew in 1997 when original guitarist Glenn Buxton, his childhood partner in crime, died from pneumonia. Cooper carried the casket and eulogized the man who wrote the School's Out riff. "We were bad kids who made good," he said through tears. Glenn never got to see how good it could really get. The funeral rattled him. Mortality, once theatrically faked nightly with guillotines, felt suddenly real and irreversible. That same year, his mother passed. 5 years later, his beloved father. Vincent bore the loss with sober eyes and deeper faith, doubling his philanthropic work. He poured grief into action. In downtown Phoenix, he founded solid rock teen centers, rehearsal spaces, art rooms, a coffee bar where troubled kids could write songs instead of headlines. He funded skate parks, scholarships, instrument libraries. On opening day, he told the teens, "This was my second chance. Here's yours." He could not resurrect Glenn, but he could resurrect the next lost kid poised to drown. Alice, meanwhile, refused to age gently. In 2003, Cooper's touring rig rolled out The Eyes of Alice Cooper, a raw garage record that spat at auto-tune trends and hailed guitars cranked to 11. Fans noticed a new sparkle. Alice, finally, had humor. During Feed My Frankenstein, the monster suit split mid-solo. Cooper laughed, slapped duct tape on stage, and carried on. "A little rip never killed a monster," he joked. When Hollywood called again, it wanted not the demon, but the sage. In 2012, Johnny Depp and Joe Perry invited him to front a supergroup named after the old drinking club, the Hollywood Vampires, only now the toast was sparkling water. They toured tribute sets honoring fallen friends, Lennon, Moon, Hendrix. Vincent's voice cracked some nights remembering them. On others, it soared into Whole Lotta Love, like a phoenix of ragged glory. Between encores, he told crowds, "Be wild. Just be alive tomorrow morning." He turned 70 in 2018 and celebrated by playing King Herod on live television in Jesus Christ Superstar. The preacher's kid stood in gold sequins mocking the Messiah, delivering Tim Rice's sneering lines with devilish glee. After the broadcast, he called his 90-year-old mother-in-law to ask how he did. She said, "You scared me." He grinned. Mission accomplished. The pandemic silenced arenas in 2020, but not nightmares. Locked down in Arizona, Vincent wrote songs about plague masks and isolation and recorded them remotely with producer Bob Ezrin. The resulting album, Detroit Stories, paid homage to his birthplace, layering raucous riffs over memories of smoky Motor City bars. When restrictions eased, he hit the road, insisting on safety protocols, yet refusing half measures. The guillotine, the straitjacket, the dozen costume changes all returned. A Cooper show without decapitation is just karaoke, he shrugged. These days, his daily routine is monastic. 5 a.m., wake up, a chapter of scripture, an hour of cardio, sound check, 9 holes of golf, prayer circle with the band, then backstage makeup. His children are grown. Calico is an actress and performer who now plays the sadistic nurse that taunts Alice every night, dousing her own father in stage blood. Son Dash plays guitar on tour. Daughter Sonora oversees charity galas. Cheryl dances the compulsory ballet solo in the show's Only Women Bleed, a love letter Vincent wrote for her in 1975. 49 years of marriage, and they still meet at stage right, fingertips brushing just before the trapdoor drops. He remains candid about the abyss. Fans often approach with trembling gratitude. Sober for 6 months, a year, 10 years, because of something he said from a pulpit disguised as a concert stage. He listens, prays with them if they ask, then signs whatever they thrust forward. A vinyl sleeve, a snakeskin boot, a baby's onesie. He is evangelist and entertainer, Jekyll and Hyde, husband, golfer, ghoul. He is, at 77, booking tours into 2028 with the casual confidence of a man who survived his own execution nightly. It is nearly showtime again. The house lights dim. A heartbeat sounds, a single bass thud that rattles chandeliers. Backstage, Vincent stares into the mirror. The makeup is finished. Ghost white grease paint, black eyes bleeding down like ink, lips crimson, hair a raven's nest. He inhales, feels the quiet weight of sobriety and salvation. Somewhere beyond the curtain, an audience chants, "Alice! Alice!" Their shouts echo like ancient hymns. The stage manager whispers, 30 seconds. Cheryl squeezes his hand, smiles. A lifetime flashes. Detroit pews, Hollywood blackout parties, the hospital bed, golf greens at sunrise, teenage faces across charity halls, the newborns he once rocked to sleep with lullabies disguised as lullabies. Remember, he tells himself, as he has every night since 1980, Alice dies so Vincent can live. The curtain snaps open, white light engulfs him, and the myth strides forth. Top hat, cane, devilish grin. The orchestra rises, the crowd screams, and the villain welcomes them into the nightmare once more. And somewhere, deep in the man behind the mask, there is peace. Because the tragedy that once seemed inevitable became, against all odds, a testimony of survival, faith, and the unstoppable power of rock and roll to resurrect even its darkest child. The crowd's roar fades, and in the suddenly silent arena, Jon Bon Jovi surveys the emptiness of the stage where once he found both triumph and solace. In these quiet moments between songs, he's not just a larger-than-life rock star. He's Johnny Bon Jovi, the scrappy New Jersey kid who learned early that dreams can come true, but sometimes at a terrible price. Born in 1962 in Sayreville, New Jersey, he grew up in a tight blue-collar family. Both his parents were former Marines, his father, John Sr., a humble barber, and his mother, Carol, a one-time Playboy bunny turned florist, who raised John and his brothers with an iron belief in the power of ambition. From childhood, he absorbed their message. If you believed in it, you could work on it. As he later recalled, taught to shoot for the moon as confidently as his mother told him, "Go, Johnny." Those roots grounded him even as he chased music relentlessly. As a teenager, John spent weekends sneaking into Asbury Park and chasing every break. At 16, he was recording jingles and even a novelty Christmas record. Years before Bon Jovi's first album, Jon Bon Jovi was credited as Jon Bon Jovi, singing the Star Wars-themed tune R2-D2 We Wish You a Merry Christmas on his cousin Tony's studio floor. By 17, he had formed his own bar band, the Atlantic City Expressway, with high school friend David Bryan on keyboard. They played cover gigs in Jersey clubs, where even Southside Johnny would drop by to have dinner at John's family table, honing their craft under the dim club lights. Those ramshackle, sweaty shows weren't glamorous, but John remembers them as moments of pure ambition taking shape, the early fuel for his destiny. Then came New York, big dreams and the formation of Bon Jovi. In 1983, John recruited guitarist Richie Sambora and drummer Tico Torres, creating the classic lineup that would soon explode. Their first record sold modestly, but by 1986, they unleashed Slippery When Wet, an album that shot them into superstardom practically overnight. That record shipped 28 million copies worldwide and spawned arena anthems like Livin' on a Prayer and You Give Love a Bad Name. Suddenly, John was a household name, selling out stadiums night after night. On stage, he was magnetic, fists aloft, cuffed tight red bandana in hand, delivering each note with the passion of a man on fire. But behind the scenes, the surge of fame was overwhelming. While Bon Jovi were climbing charts and skydiving to sleaze rock fame, John plunged headfirst into the hard edges of the rock star lifestyle. He later admitted with a rueful grin that his youth was laced with excess. "I got away with murder," he once confessed about those years of wild nights and endless options. Excess, indeed. After 5 sold-out shows at a London arena, after people showed him pictures of himself passed out in the hallway, he came to sense that something about this was spiraling out of control. But at the time, he couldn't resist it. He was reveling in what he had once only dreamed of. Yet even amid the superficial glitter, a torment was building. By 1988, the cracks began to show. On the back cover of their fourth album, New Jersey, Jon is photographed with his back turned to the camera, a harbinger of how he felt inside. He once admitted that at the peak of success, he found himself wanting to escape the adulation and glory that he had once wanted so passionately. In press conferences and interviews, he exuded charm, but in quiet moments he admitted to feeling trapped. The very crowds that adored him now felt like too much. He even took to wearing a trench coat, pulling up around his face whenever flashes went off. This was not the cool, untouchable superstar he had imagined. It was a man growing weary of the very dream he had chased. For a time, Bon Jovi bristled under the changing music scene of the early 90s. The gangly teens who had once jumped and sang along now grew bearded and turned to grunge. Album after album they released, from Keep the Faith to These Days. And though their music still moved millions, Jon felt the pressure. He coped by throwing himself into creative outlets and band loyalty. In the mid-90s, he even dragged his bandmates into group therapy so they could keep their brotherhood from fraying under constant stress. Though these years lacked the chart-breaking hits of the 80s, Jon leaned on his wife, high school sweetheart Dorothea, whom he married in 1989 amidst two number-one hits. She remained his anchor through tours and tabloid gossip alike, a private constant amid the public whirlwind. Still, more pain awaited. In 2012, tragedy struck his home life. His oldest daughter, Stephanie, was found unconscious from a heroin overdose. "That was a tragedy, absolutely," Jon told reporters. He expressed raw panic in interviews, but also a resolve. "I keep my head up, stay strong, and we'll get through it," he said, referring to Stephanie's recovery. This horrifying moment reminded him that fame and money meant nothing against the fear of losing one's child. He had dodged health crises himself, kept away from heavy drug use, but this was life's cruelest wound. Yet even this he overcame, through open, tearful conversations with family, and by turning Stephanie's struggle into a message, one that encourages open talk and second chances. As Jon cared for Stephanie, the band was also hurting from losses. Their original bassist, Alec John Such, was fired amid substance problems in 1994, a painful blow to the founding lineup. And years later, Alec died in 2022. In 2013 came the hardest blow. Richie Sambora, Jon's closest friend and co-writer of so many hits, abruptly quit the band mid-tour. Jon remembered that night vividly. "Richie simply didn't show up," he said. "We were playing for 20,000 people, and there was a black hole on the stage, where his partner in arms should have been." At first, their silence felt like betrayal. Jon hurt and felt abandoned. He flew to Dublin to confront Richie, desperate to understand. But as they watched their new documentary together, Jon heard something he hadn't expected. Richie apologizing on camera. Slowly, Jon came to realize those decisions were born of Richie's own pain, anxiety, single parenthood, and the grief of losing his father, not anything Jon had done. In time, Jon forgave him, concluding his choices weren't made out of animosity. Still, Sambora never rejoined. Jon soldiered on with hired guitarists, carrying the weight of that friendship lost. Into the 2010s, Jon confronted even more vulnerabilities. He'd toured over 2,700 shows worldwide and begun to feel the toll. By 2010, he was candidly questioning everything. In a revealing interview, he admitted, "I'm 10 pounds overweight, and I'm drinking too much, and I'm bored to tears." On stage, he still dazzled audiences, but in private, he confessed he was lost, sometimes suffocated by repetition. Those words about being tired, on autopilot, longing for something more, showed how human his rock star life really was. He joked about little things, his ever-fluorescent hair and habit of leaping into his crowd. But anxiety lurked behind every flash of the famous grin. In 2022 came another battle, Jon's own voice. After decades of touring, a singer's worst nightmare fell upon him: vocal cord deterioration. He underwent surgery that year and faced months of silence and therapy. As he told Entertainment Tonight, "Nothing else matters until I work on getting better. It's up to God at this point. I've done everything I can do." He rescheduled concerts and practiced diligently, determined not to be silenced. When he finally sang again, he described waking up to, "The first time in a decade, the only voice in my head was mine. Fear wasn't there. Doubt wasn't there." Once again, he had fought back from the brink, refusing to let the music die. Through all these trials, Jon Bon Jovi's response has been hard work and humility. After his daughter's overdose, he gave talks about recovery and kindness. After Sambora's exit, he recorded new albums and fronted tours, learning that leading the band meant shouldering every loss. After losing his voice, he learned new ways to sing, actually teaching himself to scream less and protect what remains. In 2024, he quietly mourned another loss. His mother, Carol, the woman who believed in him from the start, passed away at 83. On Instagram, he shared a photo collage calling her a force to be reckoned with, whose spirit will be greatly missed. Through tears, he embraced that his childhood was fully gone, but he knew she'd be proud of the man he became. Today, Jon Bon Jovi stands at the edge of a new era, a far cry from the angst-laden kid who grew up sweeping floors in a cousin's recording studio. Crowds still chant the anthems he created, and stadiums still light up with his presence. But now, behind those charismatic smiles, is a man who has weathered true darkness. Each ache is visible in his eyes, the weight of broken brotherhood, of a father's passing, of harsh solitude on the road. Yet every time the curtain rises, he carries on. He's weathered enough tragedy to fill a book, and in true Bon Jovi fashion, he's still rising. Whether strumming softly on a porch or belting out a chorus to tens of thousands, Jon Bon Jovi has proven that the dreams built on hope can survive heartbreak, and that after every hard rock fall, it only takes just a little bit rock and roll to get back up again. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe with notifications on to never miss a video. Before he was the boss, he was just a kid with a broken heart and a dream too big for his small New Jersey town. You know the anthems. You've heard the voice. But what you haven't heard is the pain behind the power. This is the story of a man who sang about freedom while battling chains of his own. Behind the glory, the Grammys, and the roaring stadiums, Bruce Springsteen was quietly fighting for his life. And now, for the first time, we're peeling back the curtain to reveal the tragic, raw, and deeply human story behind the legend. Bruce Springsteen emerged from humble New Jersey roots to become an icon of American rock music. But behind the legend of the Boss lies a life haunted by shadows. Born in 1949 in Long Branch, New Jersey, Bruce grew up in a blue-collar household. His father, Douglas Springsteen, was a stoic, emotionally distant bus driver who battled undiagnosed mental illness. His mother, Adele, kept the family together, working as a secretary and providing warmth where his father could not. From a young age, Bruce felt different. He was quiet, sensitive, withdrawn, a dreamer in a world that didn't understand boys like him. Music became his escape. As a child, he was mesmerized by Elvis Presley. When he saw Elvis on television, he felt something awaken in him, something powerful, rebellious, and free. He begged for a guitar, and eventually he got one. What began as fascination became his life's mission. He started playing in small clubs in Asbury Park, learning the craft, building confidence, and crafting the sound that would define a generation. But even as his career began to bloom, Bruce carried the weight of a difficult childhood, especially his relationship with his father. Douglas Springsteen was a cold presence in the home. Bruce would often find him sitting in silence at the kitchen table, staring into space, fuming in an invisible rage that blanketed the household in fear. He rarely spoke, and when he did, it was often critical or condescending. He couldn't connect with Bruce's softness, his sensitivity, or his artistic ambitions. As Bruce later described, his father never hit him, but the emotional absence was its own kind of violence. He never offered approval or affection. Bruce grew up trying to win that love and attention, to no avail. He eventually began mimicking his father's demeanor, the jeans, the work shirts, the hardened stare, not to become him, but to try and make sense of him. Their relationship left deep scars. That pain would later pour into Bruce's music. Through his songs, Bruce processed what he couldn't say out loud. He wrote about fathers and sons, broken homes, the quiet struggle of ordinary men. Songs like Adam Raised a Cain, Independence Day, and My Father's House weren't just stories. They were emotional exorcisms. As Bruce's music matured, so did his fame. By the mid-1970s, he had released Born to Run, a masterpiece that catapulted him to international stardom. Suddenly, the shy boy from Freehold was being hailed as the future of rock and roll. The album's title track became an anthem for a generation searching for escape and meaning. But with success came the pressure to maintain the myth. Through the 80s, Springsteen continued to rise. Albums like The River, Nebraska, and Born in the USA solidified him as not just a rock star, but a poet of working-class America. His voice was raw and sincere. His lyrics carried weight. But even at the height of his fame, Bruce's inner demons never left him. Behind the scenes, he was battling something far darker than fame: depression. For much of his adult life, Bruce struggled with serious mental health issues. Depression would descend without warning, paralyzing him emotionally. He described it as a fog that would roll in, suddenly, silently, and consume him. There were days when he couldn't get out of bed. Days when the applause meant nothing. Days when he didn't recognize himself. He tried everything: therapy, medication, introspection. His wife, fellow musician Patti Cialfa, played a critical role in helping him face it. She saw through the charisma and the stage persona and recognized the pain he often tried to hide. It was Patti who pushed him to get help when things were at their worst. And Bruce, to his credit, faced it head-on. He spoke openly about seeing a psychiatrist, taking antidepressants, and putting in the emotional work to heal. His candor about mental health has helped thousands of fans feel less alone. A reminder that even legends suffer in silence, that even the strongest voices can tremble. Despite these battles, Bruce's creativity never wavered. In fact, his pain often fueled his greatest art. After September 11th, he released The Rising, an album that captured the heartbreak of a nation and reminded people of the power of hope. In the years that followed, he continued to evolve, experimenting with different sounds, from folk to soul to country. He performed for presidents, won countless awards, and even took his storytelling to Broadway in an intimate, stripped-down show that gave fans a glimpse into the man behind the music. But fame never healed the wounds of his youth. He continued to mourn the relationship he never had with his father. When his dad passed away, Bruce was left with a mixture of grief, guilt, and relief. The complex emotions of a son who loved a man he never truly understood. Throughout it all, Springsteen found stability in family. His relationship with Patty and their 3 children gave him the peace he lacked as a child. His bond with his E Street Band, particularly with the late Clarence Clemons, offered a brotherhood that was often more profound than blood. And yet, even with those anchors, Bruce has never pretended to be free of pain. He's often said that on stage, he feels alive. But off stage, the darkness waits. Performing is his medicine, his ritual, his therapy. It's the one place where he feels in control, where the sadness can't touch him. But the moment the lights go down, the silence returns. Today, Bruce Springsteen is one of the most celebrated musicians in history. He's sold more than 140 million records, earned a Presidential Medal of Freedom, and is revered as one of America's greatest storytellers. Yet, despite the accolades, he remains a man shaped by sorrow. His story is not just one of success, but of survival. Surviving a joyless childhood, the rejection of a father, the quiet devastation of mental illness, and the crushing weight of expectation. And through it all, he's kept singing. Because for Bruce Springsteen, the music was never about fame. It was about saving himself. And maybe, along the way, saving someone else too. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like and subscribe with notifications on to never miss a video.